Rowies, Barry Robson. North Sea Oil and Gas, P&J Live. Blocks of Granite, Dice Airport. The beautiful village of Pittodrie, Barry Robson. For every good thing Aberdeen's given Scotland, it's also given us one awful thing. And that's a pretty good summation of Raith Rovers' relationship with Aberdeen Football Club. Down the years, we've had some incredible results, most notably knocking Aberdeen out the cup thanks to a Gregory Tade goal many years back, and also more recently knocking them out the League Cup thanks to a very nice win under a John McGlynn managed side. We've also had some pumpings though and some disappointments along the way. My name's Leslie Maben, I'm your host on the Oh No podcast for this evening, and joining me tonight to look forward to our Scottish Cup tie away to Aberdeen this weekend, first of all I've got Greg Brown. Greg, how are we doing?
I'm doing very well, thanks, Les. Yeah, delighted to be on and looking forward to this weekend, actually. We'll see how long that lasts for, but yeah, very much looking forward to it.
And also joining me tonight, all the way from hopefully more sunny than Scotland, Spain, I've got Carol Alison-Smith. How are we doing, Carol?
I'm alright, and to make you feel better, no, it's not sunny. It's forecast to be absolutely chucking it down with rain for the next 5 days. So proper Aberdeen weather. It's going to be just like being at home. It'll be perfect.
The rain in Spain does indeed fall mainly on the plain. So, Carol, it's been a wee while since we've had you on, so maybe just before we kind of get into the game tonight and looking ahead to the weekend, I'd like to hear your thoughts about the start of the Dougie Imrie reign at Starks Park. How do you think things have been going so far?
It's cliche. It's been a roller coaster. It's had some. I like him, and I think that he's what the club needs, and he definitely is. In his, for example, his post-match interviews and speaking to the press, he's honest. And I think Alan said it on the podcast before, he's watching the same game you are. So I like that, and I think that's what we need. It would be nice to have a few more wins under our belt, and I got to admit, Saturday was just disappointing. But no, I'm on the bus, and I'm definitely seated.
Very glad to hear that. And as I say, great to have you back on board with us as we look forward to the trip up to Pittodrie at the weekend. So, as I alluded to in the introduction, Raith Rovers are no stranger to facing Aberdeen in the Cup. And thanks to a Gregory Tade goal, we knocked Aberdeen out a good 15 or so years ago now. So, yeah, I mean, that was a wonderful strike. I mean, granted, had it been about a foot further back, it would have cleared not just the goal, but also the stand and the graveyard behind it, and we'd probably have landed somewhere in the grounds of the philosophy department at Aberdeen Uni. But let's take nothing away from that. I'll just stick with you, Carol. So, you'll have been following that game from afar. I mean, just tell me a bit about your memories of that night up at Pittodrie all those years ago.
I think it was actually one of the nights that I was swim training. So because we train outside, I was placing my phone at the end of the lane with updates coming. And I remember sitting on the metro in Barcelona on the way home with my earphones on, watching the last half hour of the game. And that train seeing someone celebrate very happily at the end. So yeah, my memories are swimming up and down a very cold swimming lane and watching it on the ticker, but the highlights were amazing. I watched the highlights again today because there is a Raith TV slot on YouTube, and I don't remember the pitch being that bad, but it was awful. It was brown. The grass did not live there. It was just, wow. That was I want to say the good old days of football, but it's 15 years ago, the good old days of football.
It's weird you say that, isn't it? Because I mean, one of the first things you always notice, invariably, and it's not just a Starks Park thing, it tends to be any football as you see from around that time, is just, my goodness, the pitch is in poor condition. You know, they not only artificial surfaces, but also just the knowledge, the technology, the science that we have to actually look after grass has improved a hell of a lot since then. That game, I mean, I did not go to the game at Pittodrie. I listened to it on the radio from my living room. I was living in Edinburgh at the time. And I remember when it went in, and it was Scott Davey was in the commentary, and it became a very famous bit of commentary where he just completely lost the run of himself as the ball was slammed into the roof of the net. And I remember that whole week just losing players like flies. Mark Campbell losing him to a car accident. And I think Stephen Simmons filling in at centre-back and effectively trying to Cruyff turn somebody on the edge of the box, having been told not to do anything silly. I mean, I was at the first leg at Starks Park. That was a right boot in the balls. We did really well. Brilliant Ian Williamson goal to get us ahead. And then typically, I think it was Scott Vernon, the English striker, equalised for Aberdeen. A horrible thing of seeing a full North Stand erupting in celebration. But then we went up to Aberdeen, and in very adverse circumstances, it got out an extremely famous result thanks to that man, Gregory Tade. Greg, I mean, I know you're a bit more recent in terms of coming to following the Rovers, but just down the years, and what are your memories of us playing Aberdeen in cup competitions?
So I suppose for me, as much as I wasn't actively going to games and stuff, but the League Cup game going back 5 years or so now, that one kind of resonates. And I was thinking about that earlier today, actually. I think what strikes me more than anything is just how kind of times have changed, even in terms of lineups and looking at names, and you're looking back and going, how are certain players, how are they at either club really, but also in guys like Blaise Riley Snow for a start. I mean, a real sort of consigned to the echelons of history, but you just think, geez, that 5 years ago, but feels like a lifetime ago in a lot of different ways. So listen, I think there's, and I said as much at the time when the cup draw was made, that I really like the idea of playing Aberdeen. Like there's a lot of pedigree in that tie. There's a lot to be excited about. But actually, and okay, famous last words in that, but I actually think it's a winnable tie. Like it's not like drawing the Old Firm away or Jings, even Hearts or Hibs away at the minute, based on kind of Hearts, especially this season. But Aberdeen, it's a decent enough stadium. It's a decent away day. But you go up with a puncher's chance, and yeah, I think we've done it before. Like, upsets happen all the time, so why no us?
I mean, I think that's a really good way of looking at it. Is, as you say, it's not like drawing Celtic at Celtic Park, where well, certainly last season Celtic, we're going to get marmalised here, and it's effectively just a training exercise to see how long you can hold them off for, and then to see if you can retain the ball for more than 5 passes. Like you say, it's the kind of thing where you think, especially with the form Aberdeen are on, if we play capably and competently, we're in with a shout, and we'll hopefully have spells where we can get something out of it. They're not on a great run, but it's not like going to Parkhead last season or something like that, or the time a couple of seasons ago where we went to Ibrox with 3 substitutes, which was a bit brutal. No, I mean, I think, as you say, in terms of it's almost like a free hit. I mean, we've had a pretty bleak time of it in the league recently, and it's really fun and nice to have a game where there's not a lot of jeopardy, there's not a lot of pressure, we're not at risk of being pumped out by a non-league side, and it should be a good day. I'm personally looking forward to it. On that note, so our opponents for the weekend, Aberdeen. Aberdeen's last goal from open play was 27th of December. So, that's a while ago. Actually, I'm going to improvise a bit here. I'm going to play a game. So, I'm going to give you some facts, and I want you to tell me which of these facts is about Aberdeen and which of these facts is about the Rovers.
Okay.
And you see, that's not fair, because I've been listening to Aberdeen podcast post-match things, and they sound just as bad as we do. So that is a not fair game, okay?
Okay, question 1.
It's just not fair.
Whose last goal was 390 minutes ago? Was it Aberdeen or was it the Rovers?
That has to be Aberdeen.
What, 390 minutes ago from today? Or 300... All right, okay.
Unless they played this afternoon.
Yes, so Aberdeen have gone 390 minutes without scoring a goal.
Jings.
Whose last win was on the 14th of December? Was it Aberdeen or was it Raith Rovers?
Aberdeen, because we won in the cup.
Oh, yeah.
Correctamundo, amigo. That was indeed. That was Aberdeen. So Aberdeen's last win was on the 14th of November. Exactly. I don't actually have any more questions, but I think the point is clear. For both sides, as Carol just says, you have to think. So we've got two teams coming up against each other who are not exactly in a rich vein of scoring form. Much like ourselves as well, Aberdeen's last goals have come from wingers attacking midfielders, getting on the end of things, getting at the box, not necessarily from their forwards. So really, we've got two teams here who are, as I say, not exactly on a rich vein of form. Carol, I'll come to you first. I believe you've got an Aberdeen supporting friend who you've been catching up with recently. I mean, how optimistic are they feeling coming into this
one? I've invited them round to watch the game on Sunday and they've declined. So I don't think he's feeling that confident because I don't think he wants my smug face beside him. And he's also a Manchester United fan, so he's having a really bad time of it at the moment.
Jinx.
His exact words are that they are shit. They are absolutely shit. The kudos and all that in the bank of getting the cup last year has just gone. It's they need to do something now. They're there for the taking. And I think it's one of those games where wouldn't it be not funny, but wouldn't it be funny if? Wouldn't it be funny if we scored a goal? There's nothing to lose in this game. I don't think any player goes into any game thinking, oh, we're just going to get a draw or we're going to lose. They always think they're going to win. But with these games, there's that little bit extra motivation of, wouldn't it be funny if we get 3 past Aberdeen? Wouldn't it be funny if Dylan Easton just rings around their fantastic lineup? It's that extra little factor. So, yeah, he's not exactly feeling confident.
I mean, it's all levels, isn't it? I mean, anybody who says they're not having a good time, who can remember winning a Scottish Cup and a UEFA Cup or a Europa League or whatever they call it these days with the teams they support, is a little bit different to what we're used to. But I do take your point that Aberdeen, so still without a manager since dispensing of the services of Jimmy Thelin. Number 4 games without a win. Really not in great form at all. Greg, do you think that we can take something out of that game given their recent form?
I suppose it's very much the antithesis of the cliche, and probably is more of a movable object meets a stoppable force. And it's I think we can, and that's. I think that's not just being optimistic. I absolutely think we can take something from the game. But what I think, like they're a Premiership side, and with that, I think absolutely. Listen, we saw a few seasons ago in the playoff final against Ross County, the difference that can actually make, even in a poor, underperforming side. And it's interesting you say that there are levels to it. I remember coming up against that Ross County, particularly in the home leg, and just thinking, these are big guys. They just look big, physical players. But actually, Aberdeen do have footballers in that team. So the form gives us hope. There's no two ways about it. However, they are a Premiership side. They've got that kind of street smart about them. I actually think it was the worst thing that they emptied Thelin before we played them, particularly with it being a couple of weeks beforehand. Like you can't read too much into the Rangers results and stuff. I think that's always a tough ask, particularly given their own form. But I think as well, the big difference for me, where I do have real cause for concern, is that Aberdeen, I think they've got, even kind of injuries and stuff aside for the Rovers at the minute, they've got names on the bench that would worry you, names that could come off the bench and hurt you later on in a game. And I think we're going to need to really hit the game plan on the head. We're going to have our fair share of luck. But listen, it's like I said earlier, it's a cup game, and like if you couldn't win, like we wouldn't go. But I think we're heading up to Aberdeen on Sunday, realistic in our aspirations, but aye, every reason to be optimistic.
Interestingly, of course, Aberdeen are going to be led by Peter Leaven, who was at one point touted as the replacement for Ian Murray.
Yeah.
Didn't come to materialise, and I suspect he's still going to be in charge. I saw in the news their sporting director, Lutz Pfannenstiel, so I had to say his name in a proper pronounced accent. The man who's played football on nearly as many continents as Manny Duku. He's confident they're going to be shortlisting this week, but whoever it is, even if they do bring somebody in very soon, they're absolutely not going to be in the dugout for the weekend. So It will be Peter Leaven taking charge again. I was watching some of the highlights during the day just to get a sense of what we might expect from Aberdeen. Exactly as you say, Greg, there are guys who can hurt you. There's players there who are maybe a bit older, like guys like Stuart Armstrong, who've absolutely got it in their locker to just ping one in from 25 yards, as well as just the pace, the physicality, and the boy Carlson who got the consolation goal or the equaliser against Dundee United. That physicality, that quality, they've definitely got that there. Where I think they might be vulnerable is from my absolute favourite thing on the planet, set pieces. So they've conceded quite a number of goals from crosses into the box, and they seem to be struggling a bit to deal with those. And I think my own view is that if we win, it's going to be a 1-0 win with a J-Row header. And I think that's where we're going to get the most joy. What I did also note, I was watching the highlights of the Dundee United game, and I appreciate when you're watching highlights, it's sometimes a bit limited and you're not getting the full picture. So Dundee United scored, and then there was a lot of booing from round the ground. There was a lot of visible displeasure. And you kind of think, this is a team that has a lot of quality, maybe isn't scoring a lot of goals. We know ourselves from games like Alloa, and being able to score, if you're struggling, playing a team from a level below isn't necessarily a guarantee that you're going to score a goal. If we can keep it tight, frustrate them, and keep it neat and tidy and avoid losing goals early, that might be our best shot, because then that's when the support might start to turn a bit, or when at least the frustration might start to set in on their part. So I absolutely don't think that we're going to win this by going out all guns blazing, Murray Ball style, nor do I think we're going to win it by sitting in Barry Robson style and shelling it up to whichever poor bugger gets to play the 4-5-1. We don't need to play like we played at Celtic Park last season. But just being a bit more sensible. I mean, I'm thinking we can't do it. So I'm thinking in my head, for example, the game before Christmas at Firhill. We weren't going gangbusters, but we weren't sitting in, but just being that little bit more cautious. And I think if we go and play like that, and we keep it neat and tidy for the first 30 minutes, 40 minutes, even a half time, that's when we might have a chance of nicking something. That's when I think they might start to feel a bit of pressure, and they might start to open up. That's when we might get something. I'll come to you as well, Carol. What do you think the key might be to getting something out of Aberdeen? And let me put it this way, half-time, if we get to half-time, 45 minutes, what do you think a good scoreline would be?
No. I'm just going back through some stats on Aberdeen, and the last game they won, they had, according to the BBC website, 21 shots. And then since then, their average has been about 10 or 13. Shots on target seem to have dropped completely off a cliff for them. So I think going in at 0-0 and just preventing them from taking the few shots that they seem capable of at the moment will be a very good starting point for pushing a little bit harder in the second half.
I'd agree. And I mean, to be honest, as long as we're not getting battered, even if we go in a goal down, it only needs somebody to slip or somebody to misplace a pass or a wild deflection, you go out for a corner and you're right back in it. I mean, we've been on the receiving end of that so many times, and we know again when your luck's out. We rode our luck. The Queen of the South game in the Challenge Cup being a great example of that. You know, we rode our luck a lot in that game. Even if you get a goal by hook or by crook, you still can't be comfortable. As long as we're in it, we've got options, and we're going to come on to the Rovers in just a second. We've got guys coming back. We've got options. I'd like to think that we've got guys who can maybe come off, and as long as we are not out of it, can offer something, even if we go behind. So, on that, let's turn to the Rovers, and I'm going to stick with you, Carol. So, as I say, we've got players returning. Dougie Imrie had said in the post-match after Arbroath that he was quite confident that players would be back for this one. I can't remember who he mentioned. I think it was Matthews. Was it Matthews, Byrne and Vaughan?
Matthews, Byrne and Vaughan, yeah.
Aye. I don't know if that's just him trying to put the rocket up the players' backsides, or if there is actually some truth to that. But he seemed quite bullish about the prospect that 3 players would be coming back. As I said, Carol, I'll stick with you. What would you change, if anything, for this from the Arbroath game?
I'm going to go back a couple of seasons. I think we need to bring back the Tiger Cage. I think we need to these guys are coming back from injury, so they're not going to be 90 minutes. We're not going to have 90 minutes in them. So I think we need to be thinking Tiger Cage. If we're going on for a 0-0 at half-time, we need to have that cage rattled and ready to go for the second half. I know that's not the answer you were probably wanting. But yeah, no, I think that's... Because I was thinking about it earlier. That's what we've seemed to have lost. And that's what was missing in the Arbroath game, was a couple of seasons ago, yeah, we were getting all those last-minute winners, and that was great, but we also had the belief that we could do something. Whereas in the last few games, it just feels if it's 10 minutes to go and we haven't scored, or we're a goal down, it's going to need an absolute miracle for something to happen. And we don't have anything on the bench to make that miracle happen. So yeah, I would bring back the Tiger Cage.
I'm wondering how effective this Tiger Cage is going to be. And I'm trying to think of an analogy here about tigers who've maybe recently come out of surgery and are still injured, or have just been neutered or something like that. I don't know if this Tiger Cage is quite as good as the Ian Murray Tiger Cage was, maybe a Tiger Cage off Timu. But certainly, I get your point that we've got guys around who maybe can give us that little bit later on. So, as well in Dougie Imrie's post-match, post-Arbroath, he talked about players coasting, and he didn't mention anybody by name. During the week in the Courier, he then effectively doubled down on this. And again, he wasn't calling anybody out by name, but he said something along the lines of, it's very frustrating when you show guys something on the training ground, and they do it, and they go out and they go and do something completely different in the game. Greg, I'll come to you. Do you think that is aimed entirely at our centre forward, or do you think there's other players in the team as well who we might see be given be put on notice at the weekend?
Yeah, I think on balance, there's a few players and that's one thing I've noticed since Dougie Imrie's came in. He is very vocal on the sidelines, and he's quite. I mean, you don't always hear what he's saying, obviously, from the South Stand, but you quite often will see who he's conversing with, and these conversations can go on for quite some time, to the point that the players are constantly kind of yo-yoing back and forth, looking at him, listening, and trying to keep up with the game and stuff. So I think there's a couple of players. He's kind of, he singled out Chin and talked about that World Cup Willie pass and stuff like that. And whilst I think that actually was a wee bit harsh, and I know that the guys covered it in the post-game, but that's kind of, for me, that's what you want him to be trying in those areas. I think he's maybe looking for a bit more tactical discipline, perhaps at times, from players like Chin. I think guys like Wilson, particularly when Stevenson's looking at maybe a lengthier layoff, as much as he's got quite a number of starts for Motherwell in the Premiership last season, he's still a young guy, still learning his trade. And I dare say, regardless of what you've done at Motherwell, Imrie's going to have his own views as to how he wants Wilson to fit into this team. You've also got then guys like J. Rowe, etc., who, again, are absolutely useful players and have bags of potential. But again, Imrie's going to have his vision of how he wants the team playing. So I think Jack Hamilton does come into that. I definitely, and truthfully, that was the first name that kind of came into my own mind when I saw the quotes. But it would be unfair to lay that entirely at his door. I also think as well, part of that is, and you're saying what's maybe the key to unlocking Aberdeen and so on. And I think the key is not relying on the likes of Dylan Easton to do everything. And I think that's something that Imrie will have picked up on as well. I think you hear it in the stands quite a lot, like, everybody's just expecting Easton to do something. But that's not a problem if it's the fans thinking that. The problem is that half the team, most of the time, look like they're waiting on Easton to do something. And that, for me, and we'll obviously come on to talk about the lineups later on, but for me, that's where there's got to just be and I really am loath to just say a bit of grit and a bit of dig and a bit of kind of just a bit of graft from the team. But there does need to be. I think everybody's got to be pulling their weight. So Imrie's not singled anybody out by name, obviously not. But I think he's been deliberately thinly veiled so as to let fans kind of work out for themselves. And actually, do you know something? Maybe leave an element of players kind of second guessing their own performances. And even if he wasn't thinking of them, could be guys like O'Connor and Hanlon who did not cover themselves in glory at the weekend, but generally have been pretty good. But again, there are so many positions in the team where there's not the challenge, there's not the competition behind them. So in theory, I mean, other than Josh Ray, really, it could apply to any of them. So I almost think that it's a double-edged sword from Imrie. He will clearly have a couple of players in mind who he's spoken to, but I think it's just a shot across the bow that actually, none of you are undroppable, because if we're not winning games and we're dropping points, and especially if we're dropping points at home, well, we've nothing else to lose. So nobody's so comfortable that you're going to just keep sleepwalking through this side.
I mean, I think that's what I took from it as well. Is it's not necessarily just aimed at the guys who we are maybe visibly feeling are underperforming or are making mistakes, but this is maybe going to sound a bit harsh. I do wonder if Imrie is kind of seeing a systemic complacency across the whole team that has effectively been there since the Dundee United game at Tannadice. And again, it's a difficult thing to say, because it's not as if you're able to put your finger on one or two players and say, he's a shite bag. He clearly doesn't want to be here. These are the guys that are dragging it down. I mean, that was the case last season, and we all know when Barry Robson came in, it's one of the things Barry Robson did actually get right, was that he very quickly moved out a couple of guys who had checked out and or didn't want to be there, and things kicked on from there. This season's a bit different because we weeded out people that didn't want to be there or had kind of lost their appetite for football, period, in one case. This season, it's not as if there's somebody who's regularly refusing to warm up or is quite visibly distant from their teammates or anything like that. It's a much more systemic thing and it seems to be, like you say, that's what Dougie Imrie seems to be getting at, is that he's seeing this filtering through the team as a whole, and it just leads to things like slack passing, people feeling they don't chase things down, or little errors creeping in here and there. Even dare I say it, the captain. I mean, he scored. He's had some good games this season. He's also had a few where things would drop below his standards. And like I say, that's not to criticise any player individually, but as a unit, you look at that unit of players and you think maybe they are underperforming, particularly against teams towards the lower end of the division. So I appreciate I've done the thing that Duncan does as well. I've done the thing of being a host and going off on a massive tangent. But I don't think this squad is good enough for top four. I don't think we have the size or the individual talent that Ayr and Dunfermline have.
Do you think we're not good enough, or do you think that maybe the systemic thing is they don't believe they're good enough?
I think it's a bit of both. I think the competition piece partly comes from the fact it is a small squad. It's a small squad that has also been battered with injuries. Yeah. And there isn't... Yeah, that's what's taking the Tiger Cage. That's what's wrecked the Tiger Cage. Yeah. The Tiger Cage has suffered I don't know, I was trying to think of I've lost how to continue the analogy. But I personally, as I say, I don't think we have the depth challenge for top four. I think if the table stopped now and you looked maybe at budgets and things like that and squad size, I don't think you could have any complaints with 6th. However, we should have enough in the tank to finish well clear of a couple of the teams below us. And the fact that we're not, that's where I think that's where I'm seeing red flags coming in. Whether it's a belief thing, whether it's a squad size thing, if you've got a manager who's going to fix that, it's absolutely going to be Dougie Imrie.
Yeah, I think as well for me, I think my opinion's somewhere in the middle. I think on balance, and again, I think this was discussed in the post-match pod, but I think we are, okay, a goal scorer, or certainly goals, away from being a top 4 side, but that's less so about us all of a sudden becoming world beaters, and actually more reflective of, you know what, a handful of teams in the division, there's not much between them. Where I do agree with though, Les, is I don't think the current squad is one that you would be thinking could go deep into the playoffs. I think, you finishing 4th, especially this season, the way, St Johnstone, Partick and Arbroath are going, and then you've got Ayr kind of in and about that as well. I think finishing 4th, that's not kind of pie in the sky stuff. But then actually, I think you're probably looking at, like, where you lose that first tie over the 2 legs, and you're probably going, that's about right. Whereas the season, obviously, we finished 2nd. It felt, as much as literally we were, it felt like we were better than everybody else, with the exception of Dundee United, obviously, who then pipped us to the title comfortably in the end. But that there was a confidence comes into that. So yeah, as I say, I'm somewhere in the middle on that. I think confidence is clearly a huge part of it. I do think the squad is, in the best sense, fine for the Championship. I'm not seeing, other than a lack of consistency in goals, it's not like we're consistently shipping goals. It's not like, we've got a squad that's just lacking any cohesion whatsoever. It's marginal gains, and I think that could be the difference between 4th or 5th, 6th, even 7th. But I certainly don't think this current squad could expect to, make another playoff final anytime soon.
Absolutely. And just on the subject of goals, we're sort of edging our way slowly towards picking lineups. So I want to ask you something, Carol, about forwards and strikers and who plays up top. So we know Jack Hamilton has struggled with goals in recent games, and we do have Andy Winter, who's now on the books, and I'm just trying to think. I should have done my prep. I'm assuming he's not cup tied, and I'm assuming the fact he's been sent out to us means that he will be available. I've certainly not heard anything to the contrary.
Yeah.
We've got a few options. We've seen Richard Chin used as a false 9. We do have the possibility that a certain LV10 will be returning. Who would you start up top if you had to pick on Saturday, and why?
It's really I think because it's a cup game, it'd be different if it was a league game. But because it's a cup game, and I think that a cup game you can change from being 0 to hero, is I would start Hamilton. I would give them this is your chance to shine. This is your moment. If you can't get it up for this game, if you can't be ready to score, then that's it. But I think it's his chance to shine, and if you can't make yourself motivated and really push it to get a goal in the cup game, then... And I think that's what's been frustrating about the past few games with him, is that you know what he's capable of, but it's just not there. And it's not like it's showing frustration that it's not there. It's just, oh well, c'est la vie. And it's like, come on, get angry, get even, get a bloody goal. That's my match talk.
I guess one of the issues I have is, I don't know what happens, but one thing I don't want to see for the foreseeable future is Jack Hamilton and Paul McMullen on the same team sheet. And again, that's not necessarily a massive criticism of either. It's just that you do get some combinations of players that just do not work together. And for me, I think you can have one guy who is not great at shooting but is knocking his pan in. That's all right if there's somebody else there to make up for it. And I mean, we saw that a little bit last season with Lewis Jameson. I mean, you don't want the guy shooting, but the speed that he can press at, I mean, he is able to effectively cause trouble for other people, and you get the feeling that's why Paul McMullen was brought in. But having a guy on the right wing who is very, very fast, but is really, let's just say, scoring is not his skill set. And then having a guy who's very good at the hold-up play, but also is not good at scoring, is a fatal combination. So I don't know what I would think for centre-forward. I'd be inclined to give Andy Winter a crack, personally. Mm-hmm. I think he's had a really tough shift since he's come in. So he effectively got unveiled on Friday. So I thought it was a Thursday or a Friday. And in about the space of a week, he's had to play 3 games. He's had to be involved in 3. He's started 3 games in some little over a week. And that's a big ask. And I mean, I understand, I do agree that he's not exactly set the heather alight. But, as I say, it's a huge ask to come in. You'll have had a handful of training sessions, a few games, and he's expected, in a team that's been struggling for goals, and he's suddenly expected to come in and do something. I'd be inclined to give him the start. The other possibility is that we put World Cup Willie up front. That now is just going to be the default nickname for Richard Chin. I think no matter what happens, that has got to be his nickname from now on. I'd be a bit more apprehensive about that personally, given just his size and your point earlier, Greg, about the physicality that we see in the Premier League. Having said that, Richard Chin is a member of the current squad who has been involved in a pretty big cup upset, because he played as a wing-back for Charlton. Those of you who remember us, Smoz from long ago will remember this. He played as a wing-back for Charlton against Brighton in the Carabao Cup. And he had a really, really good game. He kept Kauru Bitoma quiet. And he was part of a Charlton side that knocked Brighton out of the Cup. So he's got that experience in there, in his head, of having started somebody up front. And having gone on that long tangent, Greg, I'll come to you. I mean, if you were to pick a forward line for the weekend, who would you go with?
So I'm the same as you. I'd be going for Winter as a striker rather than playing him in the, we'll call it the Callum Smith role of just kind of being up in the left flank and looking to cause bother. I would also have McMullen out the team, and I'll tell you for why. It's less so to do with thinking, I mean, it's nothing to do with, they're not good enough for this, that, the next thing as such, but it's more in a game where realistically we might have a handful of chances, if that. I don't have the confidence that should the ball fall to Hamilton or McMullen, that they're going to take that one chance that they might get in the game. If it's a kind of half chance, or even worse, if it's a clear-cut chance, I've not got the confidence. Now, that's not to say that, because I'd actually probably have Chin in on the wing to begin with, and Winter up top. And that's not to say that, that they've shown anything to say that they'd be prolific. But I just think a bit more energy up front, a bit more dynamism, I think. And the physicality, absolutely could be an issue. But I also think Chin's got it in him to keep trying different things, actually, rather than just the same thing. And I honestly think if I was to go up to Aberdeen on Sunday, and within the first 10, 15 minutes, I'm looking at Paul McMullen trying to kind of do that back heel flick round the defender, and it doesn't work, I honestly think I'd meet an early demise on Sunday, and I've not got it in me emotionally. I've not got it in me to watch that. So, no, I think for me it's that gut feeling of we're not going to get many chances. So the chances we do get, we've got to have players that their tails are up a wee bit, and I think Chin and Winter, they've got something to prove, as do Hamilton and McMullen, but their trajectories feel very different. I feel that Chin and Winter are looking to kind of stake a claim as, no, we should be in the team every week, and Winter's going to be thinking, I should be playing as the 9 every week. So I think there's motivation there from the off, but also the likelihood that they could take the chances that maybe Hamilton certainly, and possibly McMullen, aren't likely to take.
Yeah, cannot argue with any of that. Again, just as a historical point, I believe Aberdeen is one of the only teams that Ethan Varian scored against, a player that I can constantly compare Jack Hamilton to, as a big physical but not very good at shooting striker. So it might be the case that Hamilton gets one of his goals against Aberdeen, who knows. So I think what we're going to do is there's one discussion point. I want to talk about a bit of transfer news or non-news before we go to the should McStay or should Dar go. But before we get to that, lineups. So I'm going to ask you two things. I'm going to ask you a lineup, as in the lineup you think we will get, not the lineup you would like to see, because I think we've talked around that. And then, which minute, if at all, do you think we will see Lewis Vaughan enter the fray on Sunday? Carol, I'll come to you first. Give me your 11 and your minute for LV10 insertion.
Okay. So obviously, Ray at the back, and I've put my colours on the mast and said Hamilton up front, so I'm going to do a thingy. So there's two. Do we start Wilson or not? That's my... Wilson's not captain. No, do we start him or not? I would go with the same back four that we started with Arbroath.
Yeah.
Rowe, O'Connor, Hanlon and Wilson. I'm with you, Greg. I just don't want to. I just don't think I can sit with McMullen on the pit. I think it would just make me cry. I can't watch him be that frustrated.
You and me both.
And I'm not in an angry way. I'm frustrated for him because it's everybody's waiting. Well, I don't know if everyone's now waiting or just given up when I'm scoring a goal for Rovers. But before Christmas, it was like, just come on and score. So yeah, I would go Chin, Easton, stick with Docherty and Brown sitting just behind, and then Winter and Hamilton. That's really difficult.
It is, isn't it? It really is. Greg, what about you?
I think I would... So, bearing in mind that your question of what do I think will happen rather than what I would want to happen, I think... I don't think Imrie was bluffing in terms of who was likely to come back. So I think it might actually end up being something like a 4-3-3. So again, Ray and the back four that Carol's already mentioned. And I think we might be looking at a midfield of Matthews coming back. And then we're looking at Docherty, Brown and Matthews in the midfield. Easton playing off the left, Chin on the right and Winter up front as the 9. And that way you've got that kind of dynamism where Brown can push on to make it that kind of 4-2-3-1 in possession. As much as I'm loath to see him in any sort of 10 role again, but he's got that drive from deep. Docherty, can cover Rowe if we're looking to utilise the wings. And then Matthews is that kind of all-action midfielder that can... But again, the big caveat to that is, how fit is he going to be, having just come back? If that's not the case, I think it probably still will be a 4-3-3, but you maybe just swap Matthews out for Inseal and kind of bring him into the fold at that point. But I think he'll want to have a relatively busy midfield just to keep things controlled, but with the energy to maybe get the quick transitions up the park.
Aye, and I mean, I was thinking about this, and I was trying to think what realistically might happen differently. And one of the challenges with this team is it reminds me of something that happened when I was wee. I mean, for those of you that follow me on Instagram, you'll know I'm a bit of a nerd for my model cars and love my wee model cars. And I had 2 Toyota Land Cruisers, and I was trying to build this thing when I was about 10. But their 2 kits were both from different companies, and so they weren't quite interchangeable. And so if you put one wheel from one thing, you had to move something else, and it caused a problem somewhere else, and you ended up with this horrible hybrid thing because I'd tried to do something clever and it failed. This Rovers team is a bit like that. You sort of think, if you want to put somebody in, so the midfield in particular is an issue, so you think, okay, maybe I want to bring Paul Inseal in, but then I'm either having to drop the captain, or I'm having to put Jordan Docherty to right back, and then you're having to take Jay Rowe out the team, who's actually been really good and is coming into a vein of form. So you end up having to make these compromises, and that's where it ends up getting a bit difficult. But what I think we will see is we'll see Ray in goals. The back four I think will be the same as Arbroath. Stevenson is going to be injured, so it will have to be Ewan Wilson, and there's nobody else there. nothing else that I would realistically want to see there. At left backs, Wilson, Hanlon, Doherty and Rowe. I suspect, again, we'll probably see Doherty, Brown at the base of the midfield. Ainseo, I wonder if it might just be considered a bit a stretch too far for him to be playing a game of this side. So I think we might see Matthews in there too. Then I think we see Easton on the left, Winter in the middle, and Mullen on the right.
Yeah.
I know I'm a big fan of having a younger, faster squad, but I do think with Josh Mullen that it's actually worth that trade-off for the decision-making, the control, the quality of delivery, the quality of play, and the general good looks that he brings to the team. It's absolutely worth that. It's worth that trade-off.
And from the dressing room, the changing room photo, I bet he smells nice as well, just to follow on with Graham's things, with all his scents on top of his cubicle.
That did not go unnoticed. There was a little arrangement of fragrances on top. And I mean, the one thing I did think is also, I noticed nobody mentioned when we thought Vaughan was going to enter the fray. And quite frankly, I don't think he will. I think it's too much of a risk unless it's a very tight game. You know, I mean, we know what Lewis Vaughan's like. He's going to want to come on. He's going to want to be starting. As soon as he's fit to play, he's going to want to play.
Yeah.
I don't think he will enter the fray unless there's something at stake. I just don't think it would be worth risking him. And that goes for Sean Byrne too. They're both been coming off the back of pretty nasty injuries. Matthews is probably more of a knock, and you can think he's younger and he's probably going to be all right. Byrne and Vaughan, I wouldn't risk unless it was an emergency or unless we really need that bit of quality to get a goal. So, yeah, that's our 11s. And before we head to the should Mix Day or should I go, just very quickly to pick up a bit of news that was reported in the press today that we have expressed an interest in taking Finlay Curtis on loan. Greg, I'll ask you first. What do you make of
that? I mean, on paper, yeah, I think it looks a decent enough prospect. I think what I would make more of is also the follow-on from Imrie, where he's saying, you know, it's maybe less likely that Rangers are keen for him to come here, and that's fine. You know, we don't exist to take players on loan to benefit Rangers. If he can come in and do a job, then yeah, I'd back Imrie's decision on that. If Rangers want him playing for a kind of bottom feeder Premiership side to be at a higher level, fine. I won't lose one single wink of sleep over that. I think probably true of Celtic and Rangers in terms of the academy players and whatever. I think they come with sometimes, and this is maybe unfair, but I think they come with maybe a false reputation. They come with this kind of, they must be good because they play for Celtic or Rangers. We've seen so many times over the years that counts for nothing. That doesn't mean anything. So, listen, if Imrie genuinely wants him and has expressed an interest through the club, and obviously with the cooperation agreement in mind, fine. If Rangers aren't interested in him coming down to the Championship because they maybe do value his potential a wee bit more, fine. But again, it begs the question of, other than sending us kindergarten players on the cooperation agreement, what's the point? But with a huge caveat of, and pardon my French, I don't really give a shit because, as I say, we don't exist to babysit Rangers players. If they can come in and can compete, I'm all for it. But given the Josh Gentles approach, if he's not quite up to it, then I'm quite happy to see him go somewhere else.
Carol, what about you? You happy to see somebody else come in from Rangers should it materialise?
I mean, my positive understanding of the cooperation agreement is that we get decent players and not be a babysitting service. So yeah, I mean, if he wants to come and Rangers let him come and Dougie Imrie wants him, then that's fine. But like Greg says, it's fine, and I think that's it. It's fine. This cooperation agreement is just, blech. I think is the best description.
I kind of wonder. My sense is that Imrie has effectively used this getting into the media as an excuse to just take a pop at the collaboration agreement. And I think it's almost this has gone out and he's just used it as a chance to say, look, this is great, but it takes two to tango here, and the boys who send us have got to be good. There's no point in having it if you're going to send us guys that are not up to standard. So I mean, my take from it was that this was just being used as a chance to really just kind of say to Rangers, and indeed to the Premier League as a whole, look, come on, if you're going to do this, you've got to be willing to send us good players in good faith. But I mean, we could go around the houses all evening on the collaboration agreement, so we won't. And I think at this point, this is a good time to pass over to Carol, who has prepared a should Mick stay or should not go for us.
Okay, so I divided the clues into themes. So I will go with my team's clue first, which is I have played for 13 teams in my senior career. According to Wikipedia, is the caveat for all these clues.
13 is a lot. It's a lot, but it's not like Manny Duku lots.
Is that your bar for everything?
It's the bar. It's the bar for a journeyman. Is Manny Duku. 13 is quite a. I mean, that could be somebody that's kind of battered about the lower leagues in Scotland. Could be, it could be a goalkeeper that's played a few games here and there. 13 teams. Oof.
13 teams. Okay. 13 teams.
Because it's topical, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to say Gregory Tade.
Yeah, so I don't think he's actually played for 13 teams, but I'm going to say, on a similar vein, David Bates.
Okay. So continuing with the theme of the teams, but going for a little bit more of an obscure clue. Along with Raith Rovers, I have played with one other club that don't have a C in their main name.
Oof. That's a great clue. Another club that don't have a C in their name.
And that's, when you say the main name, that's just the full kind of...
So obviously if they're called football club or...
Right, okay, right.
That's not... But not in their main name.
So it's not Gregory Tade, because he played for Nantes, and that doesn't have a C. He also played for Orval Sports. It doesn't have a C. I think he played for a team in Qatar. He played for Samsunspor. That's not the others. There's enough teams with Gregory Tade that don't have a C. That gets me no closer to any sort of suitable answer. 13 teams. So that means that he played for 11 teams that had a C in their name.
Yes.
I'm now trying to think about the... Yeah. Do that many teams have a C in their name? So teams that have Athletic, that would be Accies and Dunfermline. Teams that have County in their...
Actually, I'm going to change that. I'll give you two, because I've made a little bit, so I'll give this two that don't have a C in them, but the rest do.
Okay, two other clubs that don't have a C in their name.
Two clubs in addition to the Rovers that don't have a C in their name. Again, I don't... I don't think he's played for 13 clubs, but Paul Hartley.
I'm going to go with, again, because it's topical on a cup theme, I'm going with Ismael Goncalves.
Does he have a C in his name?
He does. He has a C in his name. I'll stick with that,
I have played under John McGlynn.
Okay. 13 teams, two other clubs that obviously name played under John McGlynn. I wonder if it might... No, he's probably a bit too young. I was thinking about your man that Greg mentioned right at the top of the episode, Blaze Riley Snow, but then I don't think he'll have had enough time in his career to get 13 clubs under his belt.
Well, I don't know, just based on...
In 5 years, you could...
Based on short-term contracts... Yeah, he could play for 13 clubs in a season, I think.
A lot of teams play outside leisure centres in Spain.
That's
I'll
true.
go with that. Blaze Riley Snow.
Yeah. The lower leagues of Spain, those people move around a lot.
Yeah.
Also, they've got some really good goal scorers at the moment. If it wasn't for Brexit, I would be sending you a few.
Matej Plotnik. And again, the whole C and these are the sort of things that it's been said up 10 times before, but when you're not on the pod and you're listening to it, thoughts come to you much more rationally, I think.
Yeah. That could be possible. Again, my Slovenian spelling's not very good. So it could be that if you like took all those names out and extrapolated them to full length, there may well be C's in there. So I'm not going to say you're right or wrong.
Yeah.
Do you want the next clue?
Please, yeah.
Yes, please.
According to Wikipedia, I made 378 senior domestic league appearances with 88 goals, 84 appearances for Rovers and 19 goals.
That is really prolific for the Rovers. I mean, that's like kind of Romario levels of goal scoring for the Rovers. 84 games. Do you see 19 goals?
Yes.
19 goals, 84 games, 378 senior games, 88 goals. That's pretty prolific, and played under McGlynn. That probably rules out anybody from Mark II McGlynn.
It was McGlynn era 1.
McGlynn era 1, okay, right. Because I was thinking, because Poplatnik could actually, he's probably got 88 goals. He's been banging them in for fun back in Slovenia. But, he didn't get 19 goals for us. So, 19 goals in McGlynn era 1, 88 goals in 378 games. I did wonder if that might be Brian Graham, but you'd imagine his goal scoring tally would be quite high, because he seems like the kind of guy who would count absolutely every kind of goal in his goal scoring tally. He's the kind of guy who puts playground goals in his...
I said 13 teams, not 13 jobs at once in Scottish football.
19 goals, 84 games.
I'm going to say... no, it can't be right. I'm going to say John Baird, but he'll have played more than that and certainly scored more than that. In fact, he will have, but John Baird.
Actually, I'm going back to my original guess, Gregory Tade, because that's 84 games. That's a few seasons. That's a handful of seasons. The goals scored, right. He scored a ton of goals in Romania for CFR Cluj. And he
clue number, next clue, I was top scorer in Romania.
Oh.
Well done, guys.
I don't know if that counts as... I don't think that counts as an Ali Pilmering, because I chickened out and I changed it.
Another random clue is I was born 50 kilometres from the Atlantic coast in Nantes, France.
Yeah, that's not...
I wasn't going to give you the France part. And the final clue that was going to give it away, a goal of mine stunned Aberdeen before.
Bravo.
So, the clubs that didn't have a C in them, that would be St Johnstone.
St Johnstone, Stranraer.
Stranraer. Of course, yeah, because he didn't play any senior games for Nantes or Vault Sport. So that wouldn't have been in his profile. You
could argue 3 if you said Qatar Sports Club and you just said it was Qatar.
That's what I was thinking.
Club.
Yeah.
But I don't think Sports Club counts as football club.
Brilliant.
But yeah, no, Stranraer and St Johnstone.
Fantastic clues. Great. And yeah, I mean, just to paraphrase Blair Hopcroft, it's lovely just to hear his name.
Yes.
So, with that then, we will wrap up there. It brings us in just under an hour. And thank you all for listening in. Safe journey up to Aberdeen, or safe viewing from your living room. Try not to launch any projectiles at the screen, and if things are not going our way. As I say, thanks for listening. We will be back at some point post-game to bring you a bit of a debrief. And yeah, we'll catch you soon. Thank you very much, and cheerio for now.